Wow. Jesus, who is Jesus to me? Well, he's my Savior. My name is Michael Webb. I'm a gunnery sergeant, retired from the Marine Corps. Spent about 18 years in the Marine Corps. I'm an infantry guy, so my job was on the front lines doing all that stuff. But I wasn't always interested in the Marine Corps. I was an athlete in high school and that's what I wanted to do with my life. Anybody asked, that's where I was going to end up. And it was just one guy it was persistent, I guess you could say, about trying to catch me in the hallways while he was at the schools. And every time I told him, I'm going to college. But this one time, he handed me his card. He said, I know you're going to college, but if you got any questions, give me a call. And I realized I wasn't going to college, so I gave him a call. We went. Me and a buddy of mine went to the office, and just the amount of information, the things that they went over with me and talked to me about, and the videos that they had just really got me thinking about. I think I could get into this. I didn't plan on being in the infantry, so but that's where I ended up, and I spent about 4 years in the Marine Corps and got out, and spent about 6 years being a civilian and getting back to trying to find a job and working a job, and there was always something missing about what I was missing that I got from the Marine Corps that I'd been missing for that 6 years that I'd been out. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about Sergeant Tawny, a friend of mine that I lost in Afghanistan. I came off recruiting duty and I went to a unit 2-5, and I didn't know anybody there. I was the new platoon sergeant for our unit and for our platoon, and I was just getting to know the guys. And he was Corporal Tawny at the time. He was at a school, and he found out that the new platoon sergeant was checking in, and so he made it a point to come over and see me. He was at the Marine Corps martial arts school, and he had broke his wrist while he was there, and we were getting ready to go to the field, and he rolls up in his truck. He's like, Hey, Staff Sergeant, you gotta take me to the field with you. I was like, man, you're not going. You got a broke wrist. You can't go to the field. He says, I'll cut it off. I need to go to the field, And I think a lot of it was that he thought that because he wasn't there, that I would replace him. I didn't know him at the time, and I was kind of like, who is this guy? Okay. But we took him to the field, and even with a broke wrist, he went out there and did his job, and. Just through the 3 years that the deployments together, he was my first squad leader. I spent a lot of time with my squad leaders, trying to teach them things that I didn't get taught when I was, in their position. So it allowed us to get really, really close, and even to the point of being like brothers. I mean, literally brothers. I looked at him as a little brother, and trying to keep him out of trouble. Not that he was a troublemaker, but he was still young and liked to go out and do all the things young Marines do. And I got to meet his wife. His wife and my wife got very close, especially on the deployments that we were gone. They hung out all the time, talked all the time. And it got to a point where I was giving him advice, for his career, his life, what he was coming to me and talking to me about things that he probably didn't talk to his buddies with, his peers, because he didn't want them to think he was weak, So he would talk to me about those things, and his decision to go to Afghanistan. He had to cross-deck from another battalion to go to this battalion, basically volunteer to go to Afghanistan. And at the time, he had talked to his wife and decided that he was going to start a family. And so he was going to take a duty station at a schoolhouse and be an instructor for the next 3 years, so they could start a family and he could meet his daughter. And well, that didn't happen. All of his buddies decided to go to the other battalion and go to Afghanistan, and that it wasn't even 2 weeks that he'd been gone that I found out that he was killed over there. And that was I had a hand, I had a little bit of a hand in getting him the orders to go to Afghanistan, because that's my job. But personally, I didn't want him to do it, but it was what he wanted, and I could help. So that's something I struggle with to this day, that I had a hand in him going over there and not coming back. And that's how I ended up here, being, holding to my word to make sure his family was taken care of. It's been 12 years. She was 6 months pregnant when he left, so he never got to meet her. And I hope, this is something that Chaplain and I talk about, learning what I've learned so far, being a new Christian. I hope that he was saved. And, whenever we go on deployments, we talk to each other about, if something ever happens, make sure my family's taken care of. And, but you never really expect that to have to do something about that, And, I wasn't with him when it happened, but I found out and didn't believe it at first. I went through some really tough times with guilt, but it came up. What am I going to do? Where am I? I'm retiring. Not on my own volition, but I got to retire. And where are we going to go? And I talked to my wife, and I made a promise to my friend that I would make sure that his family was good to go. She's about to be 12 years old, so. But that's what brought me here to Maysville. And while here in Maysville, I got sunk into a deep, I don't know what you would call it, just a depression, just being at home, not wanting to be around people. I had to go through all these multiple doctor's appointments about all of this, and I didn't want to deal with it, so I just stayed home. I got a very supportive family, so that really helped out quite a bit. But during all of this, there was a lot of question in myself about God. My wife ran into the chaplain, and it was a few years ago, and she talked to him a bit, and she said, I ran into this guy. You need to talk to him. And I was like, he's a chaplain. It's gonna be about religion and God and all that. And I said, I don't want nothing to do with that. And so she left me be, and I continued to do what I was doing, staying at home and just putting up all the barriers, not to deal with any of that stuff. And a couple years went by, and she ran into him again. And I guess at that point, he had talked about the ministry that he was putting together, and she said, you should talk to him. I talked to him for a bit. You should talk to him. He's doing some things that I think you might be into. And the funny thing is, when I met him, the first thing I said to him is, I don't want to hear about church. I don't want to hear about God, because that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want to do something for the veterans. And if I can do that here, I'm all for it. It only took me about a month and a half. It was right around Veterans Day that weekend. I knew he was going to be giving a sermon here at the church. And out of respect for him, I asked my wife, I said, hey, I'm going to go. you guys should go to. He's going to be giving his sermon for Veterans Day, and we came in. We sat over here, by the way, and he started talking, and I don't know what it was I was hearing, but there was something resonating with me at the time throughout the whole sermon, and then he gave his invitation, and I was even reluctant then, to accept the invitation. He was saying, if this is how you feel, raise your hand, and I don't know the exact words, but I was fighting it. I was fighting it, and I told him afterwards. I was like, I swear somebody was saying something. It was raise your hand. It's time. And I put my hand in the air, and that moment, all of the weight that I felt I had been carrying through all the years, at least since I've been out, it felt like it just lifted, and I had this overwhelming sense of joy just flood into my soul, And when the sermon was over, we walked out, and I was ecstatic. I shook his hand, I gave him a hug. I was like, this is I don't know what's happening right now, but this is great. Went home, and I know my family had to think I was maybe having a stroke again or something. I don't know. Something weird was going on, and actually since then, this last year, things that normally weren't happening in my home. We never talked about God. We never talked about the Bible. I started hanging out down at the ministry, and we do a Bible study. And I would come home, and we would talk about what I was learning from the Bible. How I've learned, what I've learned so far is God knew that day that I raised my hand, that I was going to raise my hand, and that He was going to come into my life and use me to spread His word, because that's what we're supposed to do. My wife said something to me the other day, or when we were at our Bible study, and we were just talking. I forget what it was about. My wife made a comment about she has her husband back. I need the support of my family, and I can't stress enough how much they've made my life what it is as well. But I'm hoping that with what's going on in my life right now, I hope they and I know they do. They see that and want to be a part of it too. I needed something in my life, and Christ was it.